that the aide and the chief, they're, for lack of a better term, and this isn't technically correct, but it's realistically correct, they're equals. It's a two-person unit. And the aide knows that for the most part, they are, instituting or applying whatever it is the chief wants to get done. An aide's not going to go and do something all on his own.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, that exposure leads to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip. To learn more, visit magnagrip.com.
I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section. Now remember, given the Mayday, has it been accounted for? Okay. 610B, that was the Mayday, 610B.
I'm here, we got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Bring up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building, a lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows centered below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome back to the Command Post. I'm Chief Rick Lasky along with my buddy Chief John Salka, and we're glad that you can join us once again for the podcast that we do on a regular basis for our fire engineering family. We've got, for right now, we've got the third Thursday of the month, which works out wonderfully scheduling wise. Plus, gives a lot of our viewers, John, a chance to dial in at that same time. Plus, folks, you can always find these. You can go into the archives. If obviously you're at fireengineering.com, you can go in there. You can see this show. You can see any of the past shows, any of the other shows of any other folks that are hosting the podcast. But you can go back and look up the Command Post and go through our archives and listen to any of them if you want to get caught up. A couple of our good friends do it when they're working out or driving to and from work. So feel free to do that. We've got another great show lined up for you. But John, before we get going, we just finished our FDIC advisory board meeting for this coming year, obviously, 2025 FDIC International in Indy. I don't know how they do it. You and I have talked about this before. I don't know how Chief David Rhodes and Diane Rothschild and Mike Champo and all them, I don't know how they actually narrow it down. And it's hard enough as an advisory board member to go through. I mean, we both, over the years would get a couple hundred different classes to review. And there's so many great topics. There's so many great people, but there's only so many classrooms available. And there's a ton more submissions than there are classrooms. So I know it's hard for them. I know it's difficult, but I don't know how they do it, John. I don't know how they make that work. You know what I'm saying? Being able to fit and pick and choose, especially with all the future all-stars and a lot of great talent. You know what I'm saying?
Very tough, especially to so many submissions. Yeah.
Oh, that. And we've told people over the years, I know we spent some time on one of our other shows on the Hump Day Hangout, talking about the do's and don'ts of submitting a class. I know when I look at them, John, I know you do the same thing. I look at the name of the presenter, then I go to their bio, and then I look, I look at the title of the class and kind of make sure that we're matching the background, the experience. If they're not a company officer or chief, they probably shouldn't be trying to teach a class on chief officers or company officers.
You would think.
Well, and I understand that. You've got someone that's in a firehouse that maybe hasn't promoted yet. It hasn't been their chance yet. They haven't landed. The timing thing, right? The roll of the dice, and they're very capable, but it's kind of one of those, that old phrase, stay in your lane moments. But so I try to look for that, John. I try to see if they've written an article for fire engineering. Now we've even added to the evaluation form, have you taught this class before? Have you written an article for fire engineering? Do you do a podcast, Hump Day Hangout, or whatever? And part of that isn't just it's not as much have you been a guest, but do you do one of the podcasts for us to see if you've put in some time? But I guess some of the leery moments you will have when you're selecting the class is when you see, have you taught this program before? You see no. Have you taught at FDIC before? No. Have you written an article for fire engineering? No. Have you done a podcast? And I'm always a little nervous because I'm like, okay, you want to teach this program for the first time ever at the biggest conference in the world. Now there are some great topics, some great. Larry Connolly and I talked about this. You get a Brian Salka, several years in the fire service, really hasn't taught at FDIC or something, but God, he's a talent. And I know I'm bragging on your kid, but like I do all your kids, but he's the easiest example right now. But he's got this great idea, this great topic, you know what I'm saying? And so you've got those where you have to look, you're trying to pick those rising stars, those future all-stars, the ones that are training with their people all the time, they're in the job and all that stuff. Because somebody gave you and I a chance a long time ago. Someone said, let's give this, Lasky or Salka guy a chance, and gave us a chance. So, but it does help folks when we see in your background that you taught it for your county firefighters association, or you taught at this conference or whatever, or you've taught it. Have you ever taught this program before? Yeah, I've taught this program at my department or for our neighboring departments, or something that says you've actually been out there doing it. But that doesn't mean you're going to be knocked out of the process if it looks like, hey, let's take a chance on this one. But it does help. But I just don't know how they pull it off. Again, there's only so many classrooms available and so many topics, but they do, and it's an honor, I know, for us to be part of that process. Last thing, John, let's throw this out there. I know we didn't do it last time, and people have been emailing. If you're looking to set up a class with John or I or both of us, if you're looking to do the Company Officer Academy or the Battalion Chiefs Academy, get a hold of us. We'll give our emails at the end. We can set it up either through Columbia Southern University or with us on our own. We do it both ways, or all the other classes. If you're looking for John to do one of his, you're looking, for First and Last Out or Get Out Alive or 5-Alarm Leadership or Pride and Ownership, just give us a holler and we'll set it up with you. But John, with everything that's been going on, it's been a busy summer for a lot of fire departments all over the country, all over North America. Our family in Canada. I've said this 1,000 times. The only difference between the Canadian Fire Service and the fire service in the States is a blurry line on a map. We're one big family, but it's been a busy year. If you look at some of the size of the incidents, John, from a semi full of explosives where it blown up in New Jersey and Clifton, to large scale fires, to the wildland jobs, to the mass casualty incidents. It's been busy, besides all the bread and butter operations, the house fires, the pin-in accidents, multifamily dwelling and stuff. And I've asked you over the years what you would have done in the 18th Battalion when you're the battalion commander, if they one day had came in and said, there's, so what is it, 53, how many battalions on duty?
52 or 53, I'm not sure.
52 or 53 in the FDY. Yeah, I always ask you, so let's say they walked in one day and said, hey, the new commissioner says we're cutting the budget and we're taking all the chief's aides away from the battalions in New York City. And I always look at you and you always say what? If they took your aide away from you?
I wouldn't even finish the shift. Hardest working guy in the firehouse, the battalion aide. Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
So all the years riding with Eddie Enright and Ray Hoff in Chicago, it was amazing to me because a while back, after they went through some difficulties there with a former mayor, they took away the chief's aides for all the battalions, 24 battalions in Chicago. They took away the chief's aide kind of to punish them, and they left them with the deputy district chiefs because that's an appointed position. So the six deputy district chiefs, they each had a driver, an aide. But the battalions, and you'd go around to a call and you'd hear, Maine to Battalion 4 to 4th Battalion, you run down. Go ahead. You got engine 22, this truck, that. I'm like, and you were talking, running, doing everything, and everything by yourself. If you went to a still and box, you got a DDC there and you had an aide. But other than that, or now the nice thing in Chicago is a very progressive fire department. They've got the command vans. Every work and fire gets a command van, gets a firefighter who's trained as a command tech. It's like an aide in a command vehicle, but not riding the car to BC. They're in their own communications vehicle. If you go to Timmy Oak or Gordon Nord's websites for their photos, you'll see it. And so they come there and they're like your aide, for a good fire, for, a working fire, for a still a box. But so when I started riding with you in New York City, and I could see firsthand, I don't think value is appropriate, the incredible thing that happens when you have an aide, when you have a partner, when you said the hardest working person in the firehouse. Oh my God. Let's talk about that, because I remember I did one of the chapters in my Pride and Ownership book, John, was based on an article I did called "The Chief's Aide," and I called it "Endangered Species Coming Back," because it was always the quickest position, easiest one to cut from the budget. Let's just take the Chief's Aide away because we don't reduce staffing on the engine. But oh my goodness, what an incredible opportunity, administratively and operationally, to make a difference. So let's talk about the one side first. Administratively, the day-to-day operations, John, how invaluable was that position to you as a battalion commander running the shift? Forget the fires right now.
Yeah, tremendous. And often it would start before I even got to work. The aide might get in there ahead of me, relieve the aide that's going home, and start working on the manpower, for example. That's something that they spend a lot of time on. In the FDNY, the battalions handle manpower for their battalion, right? There's obviously a larger manpower desk, but they just handle it. After everybody evens out their manpower, sees what they need, then they let them know, okay, we're still too short, and they'll provide them with details or overtime or whatever. Or they'll tell them, okay, good, you can hire. And then it goes right back to the battalion again. Now the guy's got to pick up the phone, start making phone calls for overtime. So staffing is obviously an important part. And even all the routine stuff that firefighters do in a truck or an engine, coming in and check their gear and make sure the radios got batteries, make sure the SCBA bottles are full, make sure the rig is good and full of fuel. So the aide does all that for the battalion and the battalion car, like a firefighter or like a chauffeur does it for a truck or an engine, along with going upstairs and doing all the staffing and doing all the hiring and all that other stuff. So it's complex. It really is complex, and the phone never stops ringing, and I never picked it up. Obviously, the aide, everybody's always calling to talk to the aide, whether it's about staffing, whether it's about something they need, whether it's about a fire report. So, yeah, it's the administrative work far outweighs the fire duty work, the actual operational work.
Well, and after seeing the impact that it had on you and all the other battalion chiefs, deputies, and everybody in New York City, I went back and I fought for the position in Louisville. We created it. Now we couldn't call it a show. A lot of people don't understand this, John. I know I explain a lot. The title chauffeur. When you say chauffeur to people away from the East Coast, they kind of, they think of the head and the, that's an actual title, folks. At FDNY, the chauffeur of the engine, the ladder truck, the rescue, the chief's aide, that's the same title as driver operator, driver engineer, the DO, all that stuff. That's the actual title. So, we went back and we said, well, we can't call it the chauffeur because my council's not going to understand that. Can't call it the chief's driver aide. So we stole a term from our good friend Chief Alan Brunacini in the Phoenix Fire Department to make it work, John. It's all about salesmanship, right? It was like, let's call it the field incident technician. Some people call him command tech, something, it was like, field incident tech. And you know what? They said, when we talked about it, this is back with 2 in, 2 out and back with it, the NFPA 1710, they said, okay, do it. So we were able to add the position. Now, in our place, John, I know it's a firefighter in many places who drives the chief. We made it, I wanted to be a captain's position, but they gave it to me as driver engineer. Now it's a captain. So, for example, in Louisville, Texas, the battalion chiefs are on duty every day. They have a captain who drives them. So there's 2 bosses in a buggy. So, so with that, John, it was, so I'm Captain Rick driving Chief Salka, we're a partner, and you've got 2 bosses in the buggy. You take the day off, you have an opportunity. You can either slide me into the seat and bring another captain or an acting captain, somebody's on the captain's list who's getting ready in to drive, or you could bring somebody off the captain's list, off the battalion chief's list that's a captain, have that person ride, and you've got someone driving you that's there every day. They're like, don't worry about it. Don't this different stuff. And so there's a mentoring um, system here, a development system for some in the future, but a partnership. So whether it's a firefighter, a driver, engineer, or cab lieutenant, or whatever, it does matter. But I mean, having that partner. So I remember, John, what we did was, the 3 battalion chiefs were great when we first started doing it. They were more senior, like, I don't need nobody to drive me. I don't need nobody to drive me. And I'm like, I know you don't think you need anybody to drive you, but once this happens, no. So they came in, John, and we had the dry race boards filled up. Tim, Daryl, and I filled up in the conference room, and they sat down. We said, "Okay, see all this stuff on all this board. Everything's filled out from top to bottom. This is everything your aide's going to do for you. What you're going to do is you're going to get into the vehicle in the morning, and you're going to talk on the radio. They're going to check the rig out. They're going to get the SCBA's check, your turnout gear. They're going to get the command board set up, accountability things, staffing, blah, 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 blah. They're going to, no more are you going to have to wait when you're not sure where you're going and follow an engine or find your way or be looking at your MCT or your MDT as you're driving and trying to do all that. You're going to sit back. You're going to talk on the radio. You're going to start setting the table for your call. You're going to look to see who's coming, who's not coming, and let them drive you, park you, get everything, They put, you got to run in, you pull up to the firehouse, you get out. There's so many things. And I swear to God, John, it was funny because at the end of the year, 2 of the battalion chiefs who are good friends were actually arguing over which one of their aides was going to be the firefighter of the year. They both nominated him for the firefighter of the year. So the guys who said they didn't need it were like, oh my God, this is absolutely invaluable. And then you got to meet them. They came out, the first 3 came out and rode out with you and Chris DeLizio. When Chris, Lieutenant DeLizio, but when he was your driver, your chauffeur, they did a 48 in the Bronx. And John, it changed our fire department forever. Administratively, you were talking about that. HR wasn't waiting for report or for injury reports or for evaluations, getting hoods and gloves and things and stuff you needed from the commissary, injury reports, payroll, overtime, filling slots, getting stuff done. I mean, oh my God, the list just goes on forever. It would take us a half hour just to talk about everything they do administratively, let alone talk about the value of the position. So that was huge. Seeing the impact administratively. To be honest, and you've said this before, I remember sitting in the battalion chief's office when Jerry Wells was a battalion with Gary Apple as his aide. Gary, one of our favorite firefighters. We always talk about Gary, retired as a captain. And Jerry's teaching, he retired as battalion chief. But I remember when the phone rang, it was HR, and he answers, he goes, BC's office, Jerry, and it's Melinda Galler from HR. HR, she goes, oh, hi, Jerry, how you doing? How are the girls doing? And, oh, they're fine, blah, blah. Let me talk to Gary. And they don't want to even talk to the BC. They want to talk to, Gary's over there on the phone. I need 2 overtimes from you. I need it. No. I need your eval today. When we come by, I want you to put it in my hands today. And they just run everything for you. So let me ask you this before we move on to the tactical part. So how do your firefighters view the aide, the power behind the throne, if you will? Okay, how do they, look at? Do they argue with them? Do they give them a hard time? You know where I'm going with this,
right? Well, at the aide. The battalion aide, deputies have one as well. The chief's aide has been around the FDNY for a long time, and it's just there's not even a really a discussion about it. There's no learning curve. There's no nothing from the first day a guy joins the fire department. Although a new probie has very, very, very limited, discussion or contact with the battalion aide, but firefighters quickly learn that within the firehouse, if you have an aide in the firehouse with the chief, or even in firehouses that don't have a chief in quarters, on runs and during visits and stuff like that, that the aide and the chief, they're, for lack of a better term, and this isn't technically correct, but it's realistically correct, they're equals. It's a two-person unit. And the aide knows that for the most part, they are instituting or applying whatever it is the chief wants to get done. An aide's not going to go and do something all on his own.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, that exposure leads to cancer. Protect yourself with MagnaGrip. To learn more, visit magnagrip.com.
Now, there are a couple of things that eventually some aides do that are with some chiefs for a long time. Chris was with me for a long time, and he knew that if I had a line stretched, that if he saw 46 engine eventually would stretch the second line without me telling him, because everybody knew if I had one line stretched, I always wanted the second line, at least in front of the building. So with the exception of stuff like that, the aide is immediately available, always available, either physically or at the other end of the radio, and anything I need or anything that's going on. Sometimes he would call me and tell me about something that's happening and ask, do you need, you want another truck or whatever? And of course I would say yes most of the time. So yeah, nobody challenges the aide. Once in a while, a young officer might not challenge an aide, but have a disagreement with an aide about this or about that, about staffing, or about manpower, about overtime. No, why don't you send us this guy? So those are handled by the aide for the most part. Everybody's a gentleman. Everybody's adults. But once in a while, I got to remind somebody that the aide is me. That when they're talking, I'm talking. For the most part, the aide is just, they're just bringing the message that the chief has given them to whoever he's given it to, whether it's in front of a fire building to give them an assignment. And a company could walk in, and if a battalion aide comes up to a captain and says, hey, Cap, get to the roof, or the chief wants you on the roof, and that's where they're going to go. There's going to be no discussion.
It's as if you took your helmet off and put it on Chris.
Oh, absolutely.
And it doesn't, John, it has to be that way, right? It has.
Of course. How could it be that way? Even if there was no aide. If every captain or lieutenant argued with the chief at the scene, if I didn't have an aide about assignments, I'd rather search the top floor, chief. It just doesn't happen. You just do what you're told to do, whether it's me or whether it's the aide giving you the instruction. We're both in the same unit.
Exactly. And like I said, I can't even imagine someone. First of all, you're not going to argue with Chris DeLizio when he's your aide, because Chris.
Anyway, that's right.
We love Chris. Chris is
most aides. I got to tell you, not taking anything away from Chris, most aides develop that attitude, that swagger. Most aides eventually develop that because they know that they are speaking for the chief, and they know if somebody gives them some shit, somebody gives them a hard time, they're not going to come running back to me. But if it's serious enough, or if I ask a question, what the hell happened? Why didn't we get somebody up on the roof earlier? And he's like, well, you know what? I gave that to 3 truck, but the guy argued with me, and then that's a whole separate issue will come up. But it happens so rarely, it's hardly worth talking about.
It was probably one of those off days for whoever decided to argue with your aide, because unless they're totally just dropped in from the universe somewhere,
right.
Everybody knows the routine, and you just don't. You were having an off day when you chose to pick a fight with the chief's aide, and usually that was a cup of coffee next time, over on the floor going, look, I was up to here with crap. You wouldn't believe what was going on with this guy, that guy, just push a reset button and off they go. But so administratively, that position is absolutely phenomenal. And I'll be honest with you, I had a city manager, Claude King, John, who actually told other city managers, you should think about this position. He used to tell people you need an honor guard and a pipes and drums band. He goes, it's the best PR thing you do for your department. But a city manager used to say, administratively, coming from City Hall, HR loves that position. HR just falls in love with the chief's aides, that position, because that's you talk about, that is an extension of your helmet, from your collar pins. HR looks at the same way. They're like, you know what? All I got to do is call the person driving the battalion chief in that battalion, and I'll get anything I want. Boom, boom, boom. So administratively,
that's what it does. Operationally and administratively, it just makes the chief so much more available and so much more able to do their job, because they're not tied down or distracted by all these other things that they have to do. Like even companies reporting in, right? Like I'm running a job and I'm talking to the first 2 engine, first 2 truck, whoever they are, people that are engaged inside the fire building. And I've already called for an additional engine and truck or an all hands or a second alarm. And I can tell my aide very quickly, Chris, when that next truck gets here, I want the whole company up on the roof, okay? And when the rescue gets here, I want them on the floor above. Okay, chief. And then I go back to doing what I'm doing. Now those companies start rolling in. I don't have to stop what I'm doing again to talk to this arriving company and tell them what I want to do or why I want to do it. I see the aide engaging the next truck. Boom, they walk away. Up to the roof they go. I see them talking to the rescue, and all of a sudden they go and do what they have to do. Or something pops up. Cops come running over. We found the occupants. Looks like the kid there's a kid that's burned. He's down in the ambulance. Oh, okay, good. The aide won't even come to me. He won't even give that to me right away. He'll run down there and, make sure this is all correct and gather the information. Eventually, I'm going to get it. Of course, it's going to end up on a fire report as well. But they're just so good at keeping you from being distracted with what your primary job is. And even back at the firehouse, he's doing a fire report. So that takes me away from the fire report. Obviously, I have to eventually look at it and read it and review it and make sure it's correct. But I don't have to spend an hour typing a fire report and looking up numbers and response times and all this other stuff. He can take care of that and then drop it on my desk when he's done. And I can say, oh, look, what about Rescue 3? They arrived. You don't have them here. Oh, that's right. I have that on my notes. So yeah, they really are great. They really help the chief sort of detach from the busy work and just focus on the primary stuff.
Oh, and let me just say this, John, too, for the departments that say that's great, we don't have it in the budget, we don't have it. Sometimes you could take someone who's on light duty, someone that's on modified duty, that can't ride the rig, maybe have an extra purse for the day or whatever. Or, John, I've seen plenty of people, when they show up at an incident, they grab someone. They grab an extra guy or neighbor. And this is, and we won't go down this rabbit hole, but this is why you and I place so much value and have an automatic and mutual aid chiefs respond to the scene as well. Because not only can you stick one in the back of the building, you could give one safety, you can give one, put one in charge of RIT, your PIO, put them on the floor, whatever. I can't tell how many times I used to grab Bruce Varner or Eric Metzger or whatever, go, come here, sit down, get in the car with me before we had the aid. Here, do me a favor, talk on the radio, let me talk to my mayor, or do me a favor, get on a phone, call dispatch, see where the other, I used to grab another chief. So for the departments out there that may not have an aide per se riding in the car, think about how you can make that happen, whether it's an extra firefighter. Okay, I shouldn't even say that because so many people don't have that, but maybe someone on modified or modified or light duty, or grab that extra chief. We'll talk later on another show about building the think tank. We're going to do we've got one coming up on the command post, not this show, but the command post at our Hump Day Hangout about building your think tank, but having that partner. Now, administratively.
And also, in the volunteer departments or departments that are combination, sometimes extra guys show up at the scene, not extra, but guys show up off the rigs, guys show up with gear in their car, or an engine arrives with 5 or 6 guys. Wow, you got a full load here, Cap. Oh, yeah, you know what? Give me one of you guys. I need one of them. Okay, you're sure. Timmy, you hang out with the chief. And off they go to stretch their hose line, and you grab one of these guys. Now, he's not the happiest guy at the fire department that day that you grabbed him off the engine, and now he's going to sit there with you. But if they get used to it, and, something we brought up earlier, actually we didn't bring up, we talked about it briefly, but so having guys that know what they're doing. Obviously, you have a regular guy, like I'm there with Chris all the time, but all of a sudden Chris takes a vacation day or a full vacation, take a couple of weeks off. Now we need to put somebody in there. So having these backup aides, we call them backup aides. It's guys from the engine and truck that work in the groups that I'm working, right? And I'll know Chris is off for a week, and I'll tell a captain of the truck, you know what? I need one of you guys for 2 weeks. Figure out who you can send it to me. And it's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who's been here before. Occasionally I got to knock on the door when I'm sitting in the office. And a guy will say, hey, Chief, it's me and you tonight. I said, oh, you're working tonight? The captain gave you the aide's job tonight? He said, yeah. I said, have you been up here before with any of the other chiefs? Because you haven't been here with me. No, this probably be my first time up here. I said, you know what? Not tonight. Go back. I'll call the captain and he'll send somebody. And then they would end up sending one of his more senior guys, which of course he doesn't want to do. He wants to keep his good guys in the company that night, right, to fight fire. But he'll send a more senior guy, or a more senior guy raise his hand and say, you know what, Cap? I'll go with Chief.
What about your exterior firefighters and some of the volley departments?
There's
John?
Another thing. In the volunteer fire department, you got exterior guys, right? He can answer the phone, talk on the radio, greet companies coming in. He can do all the stuff, as long as I give him a little guidance. And if you do it a couple of times, suddenly they have experience.
And some of those are your senior guys, John. Some of the exterior guys are guys that have been doing
this. Brand new guys, right?
I mean, they're like, they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. They just don't go inside anymore. Like, what a valuable, what a diamond, what a gold bar you could sit next to you to go, John, come here, come on. And now you partner up with someone that's like, hey, I've been, I'm telling you, this whole block's full of fire traps, man. Every one of these houses is built to kill a firefighter. So watch out with this. I mean, now you got Google, Chief Google, Chief Google sitting next to you.
And another thing you got in the volunteer fire service is past chiefs, ex-chiefs. Sometimes the departments have 5, 6, 7 of them running around that are working fire. You know, guys that used to be the chief 5 years ago, 8 years ago. You grab one of them. Timmy, come here. Oh, he was a chief already. He's back to being a firefighter. He's a past chief, but you jump him, put him there with you, and you got it made.
Oh, so folks, there's a lot of different ways to make this happen. If you don't necessarily have someone assigned to that position all the time, there's different ways to grab that. Like I said, some places send a command vehicle out right away. Chicago does that. You know, they get the command vans there right away to help the battalion. But to have someone there right away is huge. One more thing before we move to the tactical end, John. I remember riding out with you once, and this young firefighter was driving you for the day, and he come up and he says, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, you're driving Chief Salka." He goes, "Yeah, I've been waiting for this for like." I don't know. He said like a year or whatever like that. He goes, Jack's off. He goes, he's off on vacation. He goes, he's going to be off for several days. He goes, I'm studying for the lieutenant's exam. And this is, I get to ride with Chief Salka, you know, and I'll tell you, John, that was the hard part. When they made it a driver engineer position, Lewis, it was hard to keep people in there because if you looked at the captain, the company officer's assessment, well, you had the written exam. Okay. So you have to study for that. Then you had your tactical assessment. Well, as an aide, you're already running fires. Then you had your in baskets. Well, as an aide, you're the one doing all the paperwork and all the forms anyway. You know, Eva, it was hard to keep people in the seat because it was the best development mentoring program for the next position. I remember that
was very popular in the FDNY. I think it was more popular years ago than it is now, but I'm not there anymore. But I know it was slowing down before I retired. But years ago, that was a big spot for guys coming. Especially guy on the list, he knows, you know what, I'm going to definitely get promoted in the next year. So I'm going to jump into the battalion for a couple of months, maybe even stay in the battalion. You know, obviously he wants to go back to his company before he gets promoted. But, yeah, that was very helpful for guys. It just helps them get their hands on the paper and on the computer and on the radio. Suddenly that stuff isn't going to be something new on their first day as a lieutenant. They're going to have enough new stuff to worry about already.
Delane Graham, I remember him talking to me about it in Louisville. He said, Chief, this is what I'm looking forward to. He goes, I'm progressing in my career, but a lot of guys don't see it this way. Look, I've been on the engine. I've been in the tower ladder. I've been doing this. I'm firefighter for a long time, but man, I can't wait to drive the battalion because I'm going to learn so much driving, getting ready for that next position. I'm like, you already know how to fight fires. You already know how to ride the front seat. You're already doing that on the engine on the tower ladder. Now you're taking this administrative / command experience and plugging it in. You know it. You're interviewing somebody. You're going, okay, we're doing the assessment center, and I got a great firefighter coming, a company officer or firefighter on the engine or on the tower ladder, but I've got one that's worked both, and he's driven the battalion chief and done that. Like that one firefighter said, he goes, I've been waiting for, I think he said like it was a year or so to be able to get a spot to come in for like a month. I think he was going to drive for you.
Right.
And it's like he had a notebook pad ready to go. And I said, smart, good for him. So now let's move the tactical end, John. The importance of having an aide, whether it's someone assigned to you like you had in the 18th Battalion or they had in Louisville and all of other places, or you grab someone at your volunteer department, like we said, or an extra guy or another chief. Talk about Jack or Chris or whatever, the importance of having them with you at the fire ground. Because I remember you could just turn. Jerry Wells used to do it. Jerry Wells would be running the fire. He'd be out there running the fire. And if he needed an extra alarm, this is what you'd hear on the radio. To Gary Apple, he'd go, Apple. And the next thing you hear, Louisville from Battalion 160D, go ahead. On the orders of Battalion 2, our Chief Wells, strike a second alarm on it. He didn't even say, he would turn to him and say, Apple, look at him through the windshield. You and Chris and you and Jack Schiavone, I mean, oh my God, you had this chemistry they could read your mind, couldn't they, when it came to a fire?
Well, what's interesting is obviously everybody gets in, habits and routines. So a lot of times Chris will come up and he tap you on the shoulder. You want additional engine truck, or you're going to go for a second alarm or whatever. He'd be anticipating something happening. But what's unique about the FDNY, and I don't know what everybody else does, but we have a unique radio system. We have our handy-talkie system, and that's just radio to radio, person to person. It doesn't talk to the dispatcher. It doesn't talk to anybody else. It just goes from firefighter to firefighter. Obviously, all the officers and firefighters. Everybody has a radio. And then we have our apparatus radio on the rig that talks to the dispatcher. So that's what the Aide is to do. I might grab my handy-talkie microphone and say, 1-8 to Alpha, Chris, give us the second alarm. I got fire in 2 buildings. He'll go 10-4. And then he's got to go find an apparatus. At least in the old days he did. So some of them have portables now. A second portable that can talk to the dispatcher. Otherwise, you got to go jump on a first 2 engine or the first 2 truck right in front of the building. Jump up in the cab. All of a sudden, you see a fireman up there with the A's helmet on. 1-8 battalion to Bronx. Go ahead. Yep. Bios the Chief Salka, second alarm. So that radio system sort of ties us together. I have to give it to him first. I don't even have the ability. I don't have the physical ability to transmit a second alarm. I just have a radio that talks to other radios. It doesn't talk to the dispatcher. So for that reason alone, he's very valuable. Otherwise, the chief would have to practically leave the front of the building and be climbing up into a rig to give instructions or to get instructions. Sometimes you hear on the radio, Battalion 1-8, the Bronx is calling you. Somebody would hear the Bronx calling, Bronx to 1-8 Battalion, Bronx to 1-8 Battalion. On the apparatus radio, he's not sitting in there. He's walking around doing stuff. And then he'd jump up in a rig. 1-8, go ahead. And he'd say, we're getting to report to 2 people on the top floor, possibly need assistance. So sometimes they want to call a battalion. Again, I don't hear that because I've got the handy-talkie radio on. So, again, the chief and the aide are sort of inextricably, you can't separate them even though they're connected by radio.
Well, and I know, and you already mentioned, but it was so easy for you to turn. You get a 1075 or whatever you would give, all hands, and you would turn. And Chris would actually ask you, one-on-one, Chief. He would ask you because he knew what you wanted, right?
Right.
You wanted another engine, another truck.
Anticipate that additional engine and truck, right?
Additional. So the chemistry that was there, it was incredible when it came to that. So tactically, John, setting up the alarms, incoming companies, everybody reporting, coming to, you're running the fire. You've got someone checking people in. You look at almost every photo of the command post in FDIC when they're sitting around the table when a deputy gets there, you can just see that it's like the center of the universe. Everybody comes to that board, and they all check in with the aide. He's moving everything around. He's got all his companies lining up. Who's where, who's first, who's second, who beat who, and all that different stuff. So as you're turning to the Pez dispenser, all right, as you're turning to your logistical supply house, and you ask for another engine, you're not even thinking numbers. You're just saying, give me another engine, another truck, 2 more truck, another rescue, and he's sending you because he or she knows. And
what's nice is once the deputy gets there, as you said, again, I think the battalion might have a not a computer, but maybe a tablet now. But in my time, before the battalion had tablets or anything like that, once the deputy came in, the deputy's aide would have actually a command board with all the magnets on it. They'd draw the picture of the building, and that would be their post. And they actually have a department radio mounted there. There's a department radio mounted on that little board. So now he doesn't have to go over to a rig or be close to a rig. Now, if the Bronx is calling it, it's right there. If deputy comes over to him, says, we had a partial collapse, we need a second alarm, he just picks up the radio right there and goes with it. So they made that convenient and more rapid.
Oh, exactly. And so you have this aide like you would see Patton have. Someone that's telling you what tanks you have coming in, what infantry you have coming in, everything, and you just ask for stuff and they send it to you. So now let's take it another notch up. Okay, you got a Mayday. You and I teach all the Mayday classes, the 3 degrees of Mayday, managing the Mayday, RIT gone wrong, all the different things we do with that stuff. It is the most horrific, most challenging, most stressful incident you will ever run in your fire service career. You could have 10 babies missing in a building. Is not going to provide the stress of a firefighter Mayday. Talk about that, John, because I listened to you. When you had the Mayday in the high rise, you talking to the deputy. Actually, it's at the beginning of our of this show. When they play, you're going to hear him talking about 610V. That was the Mayday. Talk about the importance of having your partner, your aide, when the Mayday hits. You get somebody to call, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And you're like, all right, I'll come be soldiers. Who's got the Mayday? 38 can't. 30. Chief, I'm on the second floor. I'm whatever. We've had a collapse. Blah blah blah. Talk about the importance now. All of a sudden, you went from standing there or sitting in the car by yourself, like a lot of people do, to running an actual fire ground incident, and boom, they drop the grenade on you with the Mayday. Talk about the importance of having that aide in that process, John.
Right, and that's good too, because you can turn right to the aide. You know, you can call him quick and say, see me at the command post real quick. And when he gets there, you can tell him, okay, I already gave the 1099, I already gave the, whatever your signal is that you have. Hopefully you have a Mayday signal. You can give you.
Yeah, you got 1066. We use signal 99. Yeah,
exactly. So once that's transmitted, or you can tell him transmit the 1066, and when the rescue gets here, make sure they come see me first. All right. And so now you dispatch that. It's done. Now again, just like everything else, I'm finished with that already. I know now the dispatcher is going to get it. Now, if they have any questions, they're going to ask him. What's he going to do? He's going to ask me. So I may just have to interrupt my thought process for a moment and answer a question about, what's the Mayday about? One person, two people, a collapse, or injured. So it's nice because you got an immediate person there that you can sort of unload half the stuff on. So you still can be running the fire, because the fire gets a little slouched up too once there's a Mayday.
Well, and so talk about now, they're going to handle your roll call for you. They're going to handle your accountability system for you. They're going to, now you've got to, because think about how many chiefs out there, and God bless them, because we're talking about the chief's aide. Well, let's call this subhead on this one, the power behind the throne. How about that? That's perfect. Yeah. The chief's aide, the power behind the throne, right? Now, again, you've got someone that you can lean on that's telling, Chief, Engine 2 never responded. Engine 2 never got back to me. Maybe that, that might be the crew we're looking for, or bringing enough help to the scene, getting your EMS people there, all your chiefs lined up, everything else that you need.
And we got our riding list on our apparatus as well. I don't know how many other people do that, but our company also has a paper riding list. It has his name and all his firefighters' names in his pocket in the holder, and we have that duplicated. That's on the apparatus dashboard. I could tell the aide, you know what? Get the 46 engine. Get me their BF4, which is their riding list. Get me their riding list off the cab. I want to see who's in that company, because the Mayday might be that company. So whatever the Mayday company or person was, firefighter, you can tell the aide, go get the riding list off their rig. I want to see who I'm dealing with, because now you can call them by name. Now you don't have to say, Battalion 1-8 to Ladder 27 Can. Now you can say Battalion 1-8 to Fireman Smith, Ladder 27. Now you can talk to them by name, because we have their names on the riding list. So I couldn't be running down a block looking for rigs, looking for riding lists,
Well, and God bless. There are so many chief officers, John, that don't have the valued luxury, I tie those words together, of an aide. Like we said, there's lots of ways to make it happen. And now you throw a Mayday in there. I'm saying? Now you're trying to manage the fireground operations. So many places, they stop fighting the fire, they stop search, stop venting. The three things you should continue to do when you have a firefighter distress: you should continue to fight the fire, continue to search, and continue to vent. We talk about that all the time. But now you're trying to run this whole thing and manage the Mayday and everything else. All the more reason. And I'll tell you, John, and Louisville's a great fire department, great city. You know that. You've been there. But when I first got there, we added a bunch of chiefs, and we added some chiefs to the alarms. And at first, there was why do we need all these chiefs here? They weren't arguing, because they were great officers and great firefighters in Louisville, still are. But they were like, why do we? And I'm like, you know what? It's like you use the command system all the time. So when something big happens, you're already doing it. You know what? Having a chief in the front of the building, having an incident commander there, having an aide taking care of that stuff, having somebody in the back of the building, Divisions Charlie, right? Having somebody in safety, maybe having someone manage your risk stuff, maybe planting someone on the, give them Division 1, 2, a floor manager, maybe putting someone on all four, whatever. I used to tell chiefs, if you show up, bring your bunker gear. Otherwise, get a camera, go stand out there by the banner tape and take pictures, because I'll put you to work. I can find all kinds of places. And it happened in Coeur d'Alene. When I was in North Idaho, we had that Mayday, John, and I was in command. I had Jeff Welch. Remember Jeff? God rest him. Jeff had interior. I had a chief in the back of the building. I had Marion Blackwell. Remember Marion? Marion was in charge of RIT. I had Marty Nappa's ops. I had safety. I had everything. And then the Mayday hit, and it went like this, because I had all these chiefs. Again, my team taking care of all four sides of the building, safety, RIT, everything. And then we had another Mayday where I got in right behind the first two engine, and the firefighter on the first two engine fell off the loading dock, shatters tip fib, was in the smoke, couldn't find him, all that stuff. And I'm by myself. Now, you and I both run fires we could do it fine just by yourself. But oh my God, what a lonely feeling going from I had all these bosses there to now I'm trying to run it by myself. So what I'm saying to our viewers is, to those of you out there, and there's a lot of you that run fires by yourself, we understand. We understand what that's like. I mean, John, you've got to do it in South Blooming Grove, with your Valley department. The challenges you have, this is why you have to be creative. You've got to get a helper. You've got to get someone, build it into your system. Always be thinking, Skip Coleman and I talked about that when we did the Managing the Mayday class in the late 80s, early 90s was that whole thing was, we talk about building the think tank. Let's start grabbing people, build your command structure. I've been with you for some major incidents. I've watched you run some big things. You have never done that without a team in New York City. It's built into your system. You've got battalion chiefs falling out of your bunker pants. You've got deputies.
Second alarm, New York City, 7 chief officers, counting the deputy, 7.
And we had it where
battalion, safety battalion, all hands chief,
Exactly. Lewis was running with a battalion, a captain who drives a battalion, and a safety officer right now. You get a working fire, you got a couple more chiefs coming, you got this. So, John, you've said it forever. You need to build it into your system ahead of time. You need to build in your system. So folks, we've been talking about the administrative side being, because a lot of people, they forget that. They forget how to sell it. They go, well, a command tech, I know. But oh my goodness, if you tell your city council, you tell your city man, if you sit down and furnish the list of everything administratively that Aide's going to do for you, at times, John, I don't think at times it's going to outweigh what they do on the fireground.
Oh,
administratively, is this incidents, as vital as they are, is this. Now you plug the two together. Now, I know everything's budgets, and we know that. It's hard in a lot of places when you're fighting, when you're rubbing 2 nickels together to make a quarter. But, folks, the administrative side is huge when it comes to that. I promise you your HR department will love you. And then on the tactical side, on the incident, it's MCI, landing helicopters, having your aide handle the LZ while you're still managing the incident. Fires, hazmat, everything we do, having a partner there, having someone you can lean, someone you can go, what do you think? Or you have someone that comes up and says, Chief, did you hear Tommy? I've never heard that excitement in his voice before. That's not like him. I don't, just having a partner in your ear helping you tactically.
It's big.
It's big. So your closing thoughts on the Chief's Aide, closing thoughts.
It's just, I think what we said when we started, and I said it my whole career, I said, man, if they took the 808, I'd retire the next day. I really don't know how a chief can effectively do all his duties, both administrative and operationally, and response, put all those things together. Now, I know a lot of guys do it, so I don't want to say, you're going to be ineffective, because there's a lot of places that are. Chicago, Jersey City, a lot of big and busy fire departments don't have aides for their battalion chiefs. And they I don't want to say they get by. Some of them excel. Some of them do great. But, boy, they could do even better. I still can't imagine driving the vehicle, going through a red light, trying to manage red lights and answer the radio at the same time. I just can't imagine doing that.
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult. So, folks, we just spent about 45 minutes with you talking about the Chief's Aide, the power behind the throne. We could have spent, actually, when John and I, we both of us do a class on the Chief's Aide position, which goes on for a couple hours at least. We do a breakout session, 2-hour class on just the Chief's Aide, and we just went through that for 45 minutes. So there's a lot more we could probably cover with you. But invaluable position. Fight for it if you can. If you can't get it, figure out a way to make it happen with extra people. Grab someone modified duty, light duty. Grab a senior member, exterior firefighter, whatever. Another chief. That's probably the easiest. Build into your system where you have automatic mutual aid chiefs coming, and just grab someone. Come here, sit with me, get in here. Especially as things start to escalate. You won't be sorry. It'll help you.
Oh, you'd never be sorry having an aide, even if it was a day-by-day thing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So, John, if they want to get a hold of you, best email.
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. Give us a call. John and I are working on the rest of our 2024 calendar, but we're working on 2024, 2025, especially next year. Give us a shout. We can get you set up, get some classes going for you. FDIC is right around the corner. They should be. Again, they should be sent out the notices pretty quick. Please, and we end all of our shows, our Hump Day Hangouts, our old school podcast, the Command Post, like we're here today with one very, very important phrase, and that is, please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And please remember this: never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Be careful. God bless you, and be safe.